I only have 1 month left to live. Will you travel with me? The millionaire asked the waitress. That morning he barely spoke. If he had stayed silent, Teresa would never have discovered what those tired eyes of the man who ordered coffee every day were hiding. Teresa Medina dried her hands on her apron and looked at the wall clock of Café Luna in the heart of Coyoacán. It was 7 in the morning. Only a few regular customers occupied the tables. Among them, the man who always sat in the right corner, near the window facing Centenario Street. Diego Barragan arrived punctually at 7 every day for 3 months. Double Americano, no sugar, and he never said more than good morning and thank you. That October morning, when Teresa approached his table with the coffee, Diego wasn't looking out the window as always. His eyes were fixed on his own hands that trembled slightly. "Your coffee, Mr. Barragan," Teresa said. Diego looked up and Teresa noticed something different. It wasn't tiredness, it was fear. "Teresa," he said, and she was surprised that he knew her name. "Can I ask you a strange question?" "Sure." "If you knew you only had 1 month left to live, what would you do?" Teresa felt a knot in her stomach. "Well, I don't know. Why do you ask?" Diego looked at his hands again. "Because yesterday I discovered I have a brain tumor. The doctors gave me 4 weeks, maybe 5. Teresa felt her legs weaken. "My God, I'm so sorry." "You don't have to be sorry. In fact, I need to ask you something that's going to sound completely crazy." Teresa sat down, forgetting about the other customers. "I have money, Teresa, a lot of money. I inherited a company from my dad when he died 5 years ago, but I never cared much about it. I want to travel. I want to see places I've never seen, feel that I lived, even if just for a month." He paused. "I want you to come with me." The silence, it's between them, seemed eternal. "I don't understand." "These 3 months watching you work here made me realize something. You have the ability to find joy in small things." He took a card from his pocket. "If you accept, my assistant will organize everything. You won't pay anything, and you'll also receive enough so you don't have to work for a good while when you return. And if I say no, then I go alone, and you continue with your normal life. No problem." Teresa took the card. "I need to think about it." Diego nodded. "You have until tomorrow morning. I'll be here at the same time." He was already at the door when he turned around. "Teresa, I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes life gives us only one chance to do something completely different." That night, Teresa couldn't sleep. She sat on the balcony looking at the city lights. "Mom, what would you do?" she murmured in front of the photo. Carmen Medina had died when Teresa was 25 years old, leaving only memories of a brave woman who always said, "Life is too short not to take risks, my daughter." The next morning, Teresa talked to Don Leandro about a leave. "A month off, Teresa. You've never asked for even a week of vacation. He seems like a good man. And you've been working here for 5 years without asking for anything. If this trip will do you good, go." At 7 o'clock sharp, Diego entered the cafe. He looked paler, but his eyes searched for Teresa immediately. She approached and, without saying anything, put the card on the table. "I accept," she said simply. Diego's face lit up. "Really?" "I really accept, but with some conditions. First, I want to know your story. If we're going to travel together for a month, I don't want us to be just 2 strangers." "Agreed." "Second, I pay for my meals. You can pay for hotels and tickets, but I don't want to feel like you're supporting me." Diego hesitated, but accepted. "And third, when you feel sick, we return home. I don't want you to spend your last days away from everything." Diego extended his hand. "Deal." "When do we leave?" "Day after tomorrow. First to Paris, then Barcelona, Rome, Santorini. I always wanted to see the Greek Sea." They spent the whole morning talking. Diego told about the company he inherited, about how he had spent the last 5 years just existing, not really living. Teresa talked about her dreams of knowing the world. Why did you never travel before? Diego asked. Money, mainly, and also fear. Now you have it, Diego said softly. The airport was packed that Thursday morning. Teresa tried to control her nerves. Ready for the adventure? Diego asked. Ready, Teresa lied. Paris received them with a typical October gray sky, but nothing mattered when Teresa saw the Eiffel Tower for the first time. It's just like in the photos, but completely different at the same time, she murmured. How so? In photos, it's just a pretty structure. In person, it has soul. The first day they walked along the banks of the Seine. Teresa tried crepes for the first time. He used to say that Paris was where people went to fall in love, Diego said. Not with other people, but with life. And are you falling in love with life? Teresa asked. Diego looked at her. For the first time in years. Yes, the second day they visited the Louvre. That afternoon, while having coffee near Notre Dame, Diego had his first crisis. It started with an intense headache, then dizziness. Do you want to go back to the hotel? She asked, worried. No, I'm fine. They're just the symptoms the doctor mentioned. Thanks for not panicking. Why would I panic? Because most people get scared when they face someone else's mortality. You know, Diego, we're all going to die someday. The difference is that you know when. You can choose how you want to live your last days. The third day they went up the Eiffel Tower at sunset. Teresa, Diego said, when I discovered about the tumor, I had never really lived. I'm 33 years old and I've never been in love. I never woke up excited to start a day until I met you. I'm not saying I fell in love with you. I'm saying that you taught me it's possible to fall in love with life. These 3 days have been the best of my existence. Teresa felt her eyes fill with tears. For me, too. That night they had dinner in Montmartre. The conversation flowed naturally. Tomorrow, Barcelona, Diego said, toasting. When they returned to the hotel, Diego stopped. Thank you for these days. The trip is just beginning. I know, but in case I don't have a chance to say it later, thank you for making me feel alive. Barcelona received them with sun and vibrant energy. They spent the morning walking through the Ramblas. You have a gift, Diego said while they stopped to watch flamenco. The gift of seeing beauty where others only see routine. My mom used to say that life is like a kaleidoscope. It all depends on how you look at it. Your mom was a wise woman. She was. She died of cancer 4 years ago. I'm so sorry. It's okay. Is that why you accepted to travel with me? Because you know what it's like to lose someone. No. I accepted because I saw something in your eyes that first day. Fear, yes, but also hope. That afternoon they visited the Sagrada Familia. Gaudí never saw his work finished, Teresa said. He worked on it knowing he wouldn't live to see the final result. But still he continued day after day. And what does that tell you? That maybe what's important isn't seeing the end, but knowing you contributed something beautiful. That night they had dinner facing the sea. Can I ask you a personal question? Teresa said. Why did you never get married? Diego laughed bitterly. Because I never found someone who made me want to be a better person. And now? Now it's too late. I have less than 3 weeks left. It's not fair to start something knowing I'm going to leave the other person suffering. What if that person preferred 3 weeks of happiness to a whole lifetime wondering what if? It would be selfish of me to accept it. Or brave of her to offer it. Teresa, you're an incredible woman. You deserve someone who can give you a whole lifetime. What if I say that a few weeks can be worth more than a whole lifetime? Diego felt his eyes fill with tears. Then I would say you're even more special than I imagined. At the door of her room, Teresa turned. You know, Diego, my mom taught me something else. She said that love isn't measured in time, but in intensity. That it's better to love deeply for a short time than to never truly love. Diego took her face in his hands. Teresa, you don't need to say anything now. Just think about what I said. And they said goodbye, knowing that something had changed. Rome received them with its millennial grandeur. Diego arrived at breakfast paler than normal. I thought all night about what you said yesterday. That you're right. A few weeks can be worth more than a whole lifetime. But first I need to tell you something. What is it? I lied to you about one thing. About what? About not having fallen in love with you. The silence was only broken by the noise of the city. I fell in love with you the second day I saw you at the cafe, and I fell even more in love during this trip, seeing the world through your eyes. Why did you lie? Because I'm afraid. Afraid of loving you and leaving you. Teresa walked toward him. What if I say it's too late, that I already love you? You love me? I think I started loving you when you asked me that strange question at the cafe, because I saw a man brave enough to question what really matters in life. Diego hugged her. Teresa, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone. And I love you, not despite the time we have left, but because of it. They kissed there in the middle of the restaurant. They walked hand in hand through the ancient streets, visited the Colosseum, threw coins into the Fontana di Trevi. Did you make a wish? Diego asked. I asked to make the most of every second of the time we have. I asked to be brave enough to live these days to the fullest, without fear of the end. That afternoon, while visiting the Sistine Chapel, Diego had another crisis, this time stronger. Do you want to go back to the hotel? In a few minutes. I just need to rest. When the crisis passed, they walked slowly. It's getting worse, Diego said. Faster than the doctors expected. What does that mean? It means we might not have the 3 weeks I thought. How much time do we have? Maybe 2 weeks, maybe less. Then we have to make the most of every moment. Teresa, you can go back home if you want. Diego Barragan, I love you. That means I'm staying no matter what. And for the first time in his life, Diego understood what it meant to love someone completely. Santorini appeared before them like a dream made of white and blue. It was just as Diego had imagined it, but infinitely more beautiful because he was seeing it next to Teresa. Diego had trouble hiding how weak he was. Are you okay? Teresa asked. I'm where I always wanted to be, with whom I always wanted to be. I'm perfect. The first 2 days were magical. They walked through the little streets of Oya, tried local wines, swam in volcanic beaches. You know what impresses me most about this place? Teresa said while they watched the sunset. How everything seems eternal and fragile at the same time. These cliffs have existed for thousands of years, but they could crumble at any moment. How do you always manage to find poetry in things? I think I learned it from you. You taught me that beauty is precisely in what doesn't last. The 4th days. Why, Diego woke up unable to get up. Maybe we should go back home, Teresa suggested. Not yet. I still haven't seen the Santorini sunset with you for the last time. Teresa helped him get dressed and called a taxi. Promise one thing. When I'm gone, don't stop traveling. Don't stop seeing the world with those eyes that made me fall in love with life. Diego, don't do this. I need to say it. I want you to take all the money I left you and use it to live. Travel, meet people, fall in love again. I'm never going to fall in love again. Of course you will. And when it happens, I want you to remember that love isn't possession, it's freedom. And I free you to love as many times as your heart wants. How do you manage to be so brave? because you taught me that bravery isn't not being afraid, it's acting despite the fear. They arrived at the highest point when the sun was starting to go down. Diego sat down, pulling Teresa next to him. It's just as I imagined it. The sky was painted orange, pink, and purple. Diego, Teresa said softly, thank you for choosing me for this trip. Thank you for accepting. I love you more than words can say. And I love you forever. The sun disappeared, leaving the sky full of stars. Diego rested his head on Teresa's shoulder. It was perfect, he whispered. Yes, Teresa nodded, kissing his forehead. Diego closed his eyes, smiling. Do you promise you'll remember me when you see other sunsets? I promise. And do you promise you'll be there somehow? I promise. And there, under the starry sky of Santorini, Diego Barragan passed away in peace, knowing he had lived more in 1 month than in all the previous years of his life. Teresa stayed there for hours holding him. She didn't cry at that moment. She just smiled, remembering all the shared laughter, all the sunsets seen together, all the love lived in such a short time. 3 days later, Teresa was on the plane back to Mexico. She carried an envelope that Diego had left with instructions to open it only on the return flight. Inside, she found a letter and a bank card. My dear Teresa, if you're reading this, it means our trip ended. I hope these days were as special for you as they were for me. The card has access to an account with millions of dollars. It's not for you to feel obligated, but so you have the freedom to follow your dreams. You gave me the greatest gift. You showed me how to really live. With all my eternal love, Diego. Open a cafe somewhere special, and when someone sad sits alone, offer them more than coffee. Offer them an opportunity. Teresa cried for the first time since Diego's death. Not from sadness, but from gratitude. He had given her the certainty that it's possible to love intensely, even knowing that everything ends someday. Months later, Teresa opened Café Horizonte in a small coastal town in Oaxaca. The place had an incredible view of the Pacific. Teresa always kept a table reserved in the corner, and when someone sat there with a lost and sad look, she would approach and ask, "Can I offer you something more than coffee?" Sometimes it was just a conversation, other times an opportunity. Once it was a plane ticket for someone who had never left the city. Every night, before closing the cafe, Teresa looked at the sunset and whispered, "Thank you, Diego, for teaching me that loving is always worth it." And somehow she knew he was listening. Sometimes starting over isn't going back to the beginning, it's just choosing a new path with a heart full of love and memories that made us grow.